President Trump doubles down on his plan to send National Guard troops to Chicago and Baltimore to tackle crime, whether local leaders like it or not.
President Trump is singing the praises of Washington, D.C., where federal troops help turn things around, slashing crime and making the city, quote, safe again.
Yeah, since August, more than 1,600 arrests have been made. President Trump is eager to recreate that success in other cities. AP News reports Governor J.B. Pritzker and Maryland Governor firmly said no to troops on their streets. President Trump says he's ready to roll, with or without the governor's permission, and adds it's about community protection, not politics.
Governor J.B. Pritzker pushes back on federal pressure to deploy troops in Chicago, making it clear he won't request assistance he says the city doesn't need.
He criticized the idea of states being expected to, quote, beg for military help, calling it political theater. With crime in Chicago showing signs of improvement, Pritzker said there's no justification for a federal presence. He also warned that any attempt to deploy troops without state approval would face legal pushback, framing it as a threat to Illinois' autonomy and civil rights.
We know before anything has happened here that the Trump plan is to use any excuse to deploy armed military personnel to Chicago. If someone flings a sandwich at an ICE agent, Trump will try and go on TV and declare an emergency in Chicago. I'm imploring everyone, if and when that happens, do not take the bait.